It's the Growing for Market podcast.
We're enabling you to spend an equal amount on fruits and vegetables as you do on everything else. And it's that abundance mindset of I have plenty of Maine harvest bucks that actually causes the behavior change around eating fruits and vegetables. If I think so I have plenty of Maine harvest bucks, I've never tried that vegetable, and I'm not going to be out a lot. If I go ahead and grab that, it has the exact effect that we want it to, which is encouraging folks to eat more fruits and vegetables.
Hello, and welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, where we talk about growing, marketing, and the business of growing vegetables and flowers for local markets like farmers markets, CSAs, farm stands, and local wholesaling. I'm Andrew Mefford, your host and the editor of Growing for Market magazine for 34 years, the magazine for flower and vegetable market farmers. If you're enjoying the podcast, just wait till you see the magazine. Go to growingformarket.com for more. Also, if you could give us a follow and a rating, it really helps other like-minded people find the podcast. And now, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. Are you tired of breakdowns and not knowing if your old Farmall or Alice G will start? Consider the Tillmor Super E, the electric cultivating tractor built for market growers. With up to 8 hours of runtime, the Super E uses a 48-volt electric system that's quiet, easy to operate, and dependable. You'll love the high clearance and clear view of your rows, perfect for cultivating, fertilizing, and planting with precision. And here's the best part. It starts at $19,500, and that includes one battery, charger, and everything you need to start using it right away. No gas, no noise, no constant repairs, and cheaper to operate than a gas tractor. It delivers reliable power that reduces manual labor and keeps your crew motivated. Learn more and see the Super E in action at tillmor.com. A well-built high tunnel is one of the smartest investments a small farm can make. It protects your crops, extends your season, and keeps income rolling in even through winter. Nifty Hoops builds complete Gothic high tunnels that are easy to install and built to last. Their easy, bolt-together construction makes setup straightforward and efficient, whether it's a small backyard hoop house or a dozen large production-scale high tunnels. Especially through their community build option, where professional builders work alongside your crew, family, or neighbors to build each structure, usually in a single day. Most growers go with Nifty's full setup: steel-framed end walls, roll-up sides, baseboards, double plastic with inflation, automated vents, and real doors, all priced to make the best choice the easy one. Nifty is a small crew out of Michigan using U.S. steel and working hands-on with growers across the country. They'll help evaluate your site, handle NRCS paperwork, and if they're building with you, they'll even float your cost share until after the build. Visit niftyhoops.com to learn more. Farm more seasons. Grow more food. Nifty Hoops. Seven Springs Farm Supply has been the market gardener's supply company for over 30 years. Their catalog includes a complete selection of organic fertilizers, pest and disease controls, growing mixes, and cover crop seed. Their experienced team is ready to help you problem solve and find the right solution for your farm and your goals. Seven Springs is committed to providing growers with superior products and service because they understand that their success depends on your success. Request a free paper catalog and learn more at sevenspringsfarmsupply.com. From November 28th through December 1st, Seven Springs is running a Black Friday Cyber Monday sale. Use code TCP35 for $35 off purchases of $250 or more. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Emily Grassie to the Growing for Market podcast. As the Director of Food Access Programs at the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets, Emily leads a range of initiatives aimed at enhancing equitable access to Maine farmers markets and Maine food. She oversees the Maine Harvest Bucks program, which is what we're here to talk about today, supporting over 80 farmers markets and farm stands running that program, and she manages the farmers market model of Maine Senior Farm Share. So, without further ado, welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, Emily.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so People who have been listening to the pod for a while know that my farm is here in Maine. And so that's how I heard about the good work that you are doing there at the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets. And I've been wanting to have you on the pod for a while because I think some of the programs you are running there at the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets are really innovative as far as getting more farmers market produce to more people. So I wanted to talk about what you're doing in case other people around the country or world, for that matter, want to duplicate what you're doing. But first, can you tell us a bit about the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets and how you got involved with it?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you a bit about MFFM, which is what we call ourselves because Maine Federation of Farmers Markets is a mouthful.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah, you get the point. So MFFM is the statewide nonprofit organization that supports Maine's 100 plus farmers markets. And so there's a variety of ways that we do that. And one of them is that we provide technical assistance. Another one is training. We do lots of different trainings. And we also have a whole wing of work around advocacy. And so all of that adds up to just really helping markets operate in a sustainable way and deepens their connection with their communities. We also focus heavily on food access, making sure that everyone, regardless of income, can shop directly from Maine farmers, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but there's something special about shopping directly with the person that grew your food.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you also asked how I got involved. Was that part of the question too?
Yeah, I was curious about that.
I got involved starting in 2015. At that time, I was just a farmers market shopper, but I was a really loyal shopper of the Hampden Farmers Market. And they had this little, not competition, but it was like a little award they gave, Shopper of the Year. So I got that from shopping every week with my young son. And the executive director of MFFM at the time was following the Hampden Farmers Market page and saw that and kind of cold called me and invited me to participate in MFFM's strategic planning process. They were at a point in the organization's development where they were trying to set a more long-term plan. And so that strategic planning process included board members and lots of different stakeholders. And I represented the shopper's perspective for that planning process. And I really enjoyed being part of that and being part of the team. You know, it was really, really special for me to be invited. And so during this planning process, we kind of identified, at the time there was just one employee, the ED, but we identified that there was a need for expansion. I mean, imagine that. They needed an administrative assistant. And so later that year, I came on board, as a part-time staff person, the second employee. And that's my original involvement. But my background as a person that eats food is what really drew me to my work. Literally. I don't have any education specific to food access work. I am kind of still embodying that shopper of the year perspective. I'm still the person, like I go to markets all of the time. And so I bring a lot of that like direct engagement to my work.
That's a great story, actually. I don't know what I was expecting, but that's much more interesting than whatever I was expecting. I think you're like shopper of the decade by this point. Actually, because, if you started in 2015, you've been there for about a decade now, right?
Yeah, I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary, yes. And my team has already celebrated my 10 years with MFFM, but I think I will follow up with the Hampden Farmers Market and ask them about, like, it's never been done, but I still think we should have a Shopper of the Decade award. They'll laugh about that.
You can tell them I agree.
I will. I'll credit you.
Well, that's good because I know you guys really do a lot. I hope every state has an organization that's as active as far as, like you said, I know you training and facilitate a lot of programs and things like that. Like I've been aware of your work in the conference and everything for many years. And so I think it's a great benefit having the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets supporting the markets here. And I hope every state has something like what you guys do because it makes a difference for the farmers.
A little bit.
And the eaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a definite void in states that don't have an MFFM. There's a need for someone to kind of bridge the connection between all of these institutions, government, school systems, all of these different institutions, they want to be involved with farmers markets, but there's like, we're the liaison. So a lot of states, probably most of them, do have some organization that is doing some iteration of the same work that we're doing. But where we are so focused on farmers markets and direct to consumer sales, there's not a state level organization in every state that works exactly in our track. So we have done a lot of innovating and inventing of the wheel, just, learning as we go and implementing a lot of the work that we do. So, and we do engage with a lot of other state level organizations. There's a whole network of them, and we share ideas and commiserate all the time. So we bring a lot of ideas to the table, but we also are always sharing our ideas and looking to other organizations like us for ideas around all the stuff that we do.
Yeah. Okay. And I think, yeah, other states that don't have an organization like MFFM could take a look at what you do, because I know we don't do a farmer's market anymore, but I know that we got a lot of support from MFFM, and the market we used to do does still. So it's a great help to have someone like MFFM on your side. So I think, yeah, other states, it's a very clever idea. If you don't have an organization supporting the farmers markets in your state, it's a great idea. You can look at the MFFM for ideas.
Oh yeah, reach out. What farmers market did you sell at?
We did the Skowhegan farmers market
Awesome.
because we're just 5 miles north of town. We're in Cornville, but just like 5 miles north of Skowhegan. So
That's perfect.
it was
Skowhegan's a great
we did that market for many years. It is a great market. Now, I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while to talk about the Maine Harvest Bucks program, because it's a really cool program that I think other organizations in other places would want to duplicate if they haven't already. Can you tell us what the Maine Harvest Bucks program is?
Yeah, absolutely. Maine Harvest Bucks is Maine's nutrition incentive program. And more specifically, it's Maine's farmers market, direct to consumer is really what we call that, nutrition incentive program for people who use SNAP benefits. So the way that it works is that when shoppers spend their SNAP dollars using their EBT card at participating farmers markets and farm stands, they earn bonus harvest bucks, Maine Harvest Bucks. That bonus is used to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. And so that's tying it back to the nutrition part of the incentive. They basically get more money, stretch their benefits, and then increase their fruit and vegetable consumption. So this has been a style of program for a long time. We didn't invent that, the nutrition incentive, but we certainly gave it our own name. And it's got a different name in other states, obviously. But yeah, Maine Harvest Bucks has been growing for the same 10 years that I've been growing in my career. It was in 2015 that we branded. So nutrition incentives have been around for a while, but they've been called Maine Harvest Bucks here in Maine for about 10 years as well.
Okay. And so it's like, if people have SNAP, which is the new, that's what used to be called food stamps. So it's basically food support for people who don't have enough money to buy food. They get a card, right, that's loaded with their SNAP benefits.
Yes, actually, I can back up a little bit, Andrew, and give you a little bit more context. I do tend to take for granted a lot of terms that I am just so entrenched in all of this that, okay, so let's back up a little bit. And, SNAP and EBT is a very current topic, I'm sure you know, so it works well, I guess, for me to back up a little bit. And let me start from the beginning in how Maine Harvest Bucks happens. So for a lot of low-income folks, they can apply for a federal food benefit called SNAP. It used to be called food stamps, and now it's called SNAP, which stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And you apply in whatever state you live in. And if it's decided that you're eligible, these benefits get loaded onto an EBT card. And it's those SNAP dollars that we match with Maine Harvest Bucks. At different times, we have matched the spending 1-to-1. So if you spend 10 on your EBT card, you get 10 in Maine Harvest Bucks. And then there have been other leaner times when our match is 2-to-1. So spend 10, get 5 in the nutrition incentive. And So this is really like a win-win situation for everyone involved in this transaction, this Maine Harvest Bucks transaction, because it means more food on the table for Maine eaters and more income for Maine farmers. It also redirects the federal SNAP dollar directly into the local Maine economy.
Okay. And of course, it's in good food. It also makes sure it should be good for the economy, good for the people. And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand acts as your business coach and assistant, helping you sell out, save time, and grow smarter. From marketing to fulfillment to customer support, Farmhand pulls real data from what's worked and what hasn't for other farms and turns it into websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that give you your time back. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/GFM and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/GFM. The Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers educates, unites, and supports cut flower growers of all sizes. Not a member yet? Now's the time. Join or rejoin the ASCFG by December 31st and receive a package with all 4 2025 issues of the Cut Flower Quarterly plus a $50 gift certificate. Use your gift certificate towards any ASCFG book titles such as Specialty Cut Flowers, Woody Cut Stems, or Post-Harvest Handling of Cut Flowers and Greens. Or use your extra $50 towards an event like the 2026 conference in Albuquerque, our 2026 webinar series, Digging Deep in Soil Health, IPM, and more, a 2026 farm tour, or save it for a future event. Become a member of the ASCFG community today. Let's grow stronger together.
Hey, it's Lindsay from Grown By. There are a lot of farm sales platforms out there, but there's only one that's cooperatively owned by farmers. And that's Grown By, your all-in-one solution to simplify farm sales. I'm proud and excited to share 2 new features now available on top of the tools you already know and love. Number 1, our customizable CSA box builder. It allows your customers to simply say what they'd like in their share, and Grown By matches their preferences with your weekly harvest. Number 2, our new wholesale-only marketplace. Developed with the Culinary Institute of America, it makes your life easier with a dedicated shop for your wholesale customers. No more texting those chefs. Combining retail and wholesale inventories and records. And, drumroll, automatic payments on due dates. No more chasing down late payments. These new features sit alongside our popular online sales and traditional subscription CSA tools, making it easier than ever to manage your farm's business. As you start to get ready for next season, we'd love to hear from you and see if our cooperative can be a partner in growing your farm. Visit us at grownby.com. That's GROWNBY.com.
And now, back to the show. Okay, so if they have this card, so I think a lot of people will be familiar with the idea of having a SNAP card. In fact, a lot of farmers markets have some way to take them, whether it be an individual farmer's point of sale or like at the Skowhegan Farmers Market, actually, we have one checkout. At least they used, I don't know if they still do it this way, but they used to have one checkout, one point of sale for the whole market. So people could mark down, I guess people could mark down what they wanted to charge to different stalls and then essentially check out. It's almost like a cashier, like in a big box store or something. You would buy something from different departments and then go check out with the cashier for the whole store. Well, I know at least in Skowhegan, I think they wanted people to be able to take cards even if they didn't have their own point of sale. And so people would be able to walk around and buy things from different stalls and then check out with that card at the end. So I want to know how people know if it's a leaner time and they're getting $5 for every $10 spent, or if it's better funded and they know their dollars are going to get doubled. And how does that actually happen? Like, I'm assuming if they take that card and walk into a convenience store and buy something, I know not everything is available to be bought with SNAP. It's got to be food, I know. But like, how does that work? If they're going to a convenience store, it doesn't get doubled. But if they go to a farmer's market, it does get doubled.
Yeah, so the Skowhegan Market still does things that same way. We call it our info booth model. And the language that I use to describe it is kind of, it's like my umbrella language. It works a little bit different at each farmer's market, but that's like the basic way that we talk about the program. So that model, the shopping sheet is what we call that. That is still in place, and that's the most common way that folks would utilize the benefit. And so for shopping sheet markets, the way that it works is, as you described, you stop at the info booth, you grab a clipboard with a sheet of paper that has all the vendors listed. You go around and do your shopping, and the vendors write their total next to their name. When you're done shopping, and the shopping sheet represents your EBT shopping, right? When you're all done with that, you return to the information booth. They total everything that you're wanting to charge onto your EBT card, and that's when they establish what the match is going to be. So I spent $20 on my EBT card that's written down on that shopping sheet. And then once my card gets swiped, I receive my $10 in Maine Harvest Bucks. So it's a 50% match currently.
So there's no paper or anything involved. It's all just digital.
Actually, that's a good clarifying question. So what I mean by that's when you receive your Maine Harvest Bucks bonus, you actually get physical Maine Harvest Bucks vouchers. And they come in 5s and 1s, and they say right on them, good for purchasing fresh fruits and veg. And what's nice about Maine Harvest Bucks is that it's a reciprocal currency. So I can earn some at the Skowhegan market. And then if I end up in Portland on a market day, I can pick up some fruits and vegetables. And of course, they accept EBT too. So I could shop with my SNAP card if I wanted. But speaking solely about the Maine Harvest Bucks, then I can spend them anywhere that accepts them.
Okay. So, and is it more or less a similar kind of thing? If, let's say, I'm just trying to cover all the bases for everybody out there. Let's say they're a market that doesn't have the, what did you call it? Info booth model,
Yes.
where everyone can check out at a central cashier. Okay. So if, let's say listeners are at a market that doesn't do the info booth model, individual vendors just have a point of sale. Is it like they walk up and buy $10 worth of broccoli, and then they can hand over a $10 voucher for another $10 worth of produce? How does that work?
That's a good question. So as you're finding out, each market is its own puzzle. So there's different players and different involvement from the market. Some markets have a hired staff person to staff the info booth. Some are staffed by volunteers. And so I don't want to say that individual vendors being authorized and accepting SNAP on their own is like falling out of fashion. It's not. We just happen to have our info booth programs running at like almost half of farmers markets now. So that's the way most markets are going. But there is a small handful of markets that don't have that centrally organized programming. And so I guess your first step, Andrew, if you were wanting to do that, would be to find out if there is a vendor at the market that accepts SNAP. And well, so farmers can accept SNAP on their own, and they don't have to participate in Maine Harvest Bucks. Obviously, it's an elective thing.
Right.
And so I don't know that there is like a central list of farmers that accept SNAP. If there is, I'm just not thinking of it. But we host a list of farmers that accept SNAP and participate in Maine Harvest Bucks. So there could be some farmers out there that are just accepting EBT cards and not participating in the matching program, but the majority of them do. And the way you would figure that out is go to our website, mainharvestbucks.org, which has the list of farmers markets, farmers and farm stands that participate in Maine Harvest Bucks, as well as a list of farms that have CSAs that participate in Maine Harvest Bucks. So first of all, head to one of our resources to find what vendors and where accept SNAP, and then go to the market and ask them.
Okay. And so people are in Maine and they get SNAP. I'm wondering how they find out about this program. Do you get a list of everyone who's on SNAP and send them, like say, hey, you have access to this benefit if you do, you can use it if you do this?
You're asking some really great questions and actually identifying in the connection of programs. So when you apply with the state of Maine DHHS office for SNAP benefits, they do their thing and establish whether you're eligible or not. And if you are, then you get mailed your brand spanking new EBT card with a small pamphlet. And the pamphlet includes just the basic FAQ information. But there is a question on this little pamphlet brochure thing that the question is, can I use my EBT card at a farmer's market? And the answer to it is actually kind of funny. It says, yes, the USDA encourages healthy eating. That's the info. That's what you get. So you have to, I know it's kind of hysterical. At least it's there. So we don't have a great connection with the office that produces this information. So, but we're aware of that. And we're like, it would be best if you got a whole envelope worth of information with your EBT benefit card. So our job is to figure out where folks that have SNAP are and get them the information. So we do that a bunch of different ways. We are super active on socials, and a lot of our socials are targeted towards like word of mouth, encouraging people to talk to each other about all sorts of different things. But for our intents and purposes, talk about what you're eating, talk about where you're getting it, invite people over for dinner. And so just we're working towards destigmatizing utilizing Maine harvest bucks and SNAP benefits. So we also do direct mailings. So no, I don't get a list of all of the people that sign up for SNAP. However, we do have an agreement with DHHS. They will release addresses, like mailing information. And there's a whole, like, because this is folk sensitive information, there's a whole chain of custody, I'll call it, for how this information gets from the state of Maine to printed on a postcard. We don't get access to any of that. It's a very closed transaction. But when people sign up for SNAP, they acknowledge that the state of Maine might do some mailings either, by email or snail mail. So we're well within like what we're allowed to do. But I want to be clear that like because of special agreements that we have in place, we're able to mail things directly to folks.
Yeah, no, that's good. Privacy is important. It's good of you to say that.
And we're super aware of that. So at some choice markets each year, I'm able to send postcards to each individual within a zip code and let them know about their farmer's market, that their benefits will be stretched using this Maine Harvest Bucks bonus. But that's really the ongoing challenge and thing that we're striving to do is get the word out, because it can help a lot more people than it is currently. And there's still a lot of areas for us to expand.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was just curious how people even find out about the program, because we were doing the farmers market up until we stopped during the pandemic. So I forget exactly which year, if it was 2020. I think we might have stopped in 2020. But I remember people coming to our stand and they knew that if they had the coupons and they knew that they could get twice as much, it's like charge $10 to their card and then give us a coupon. And I'm a little foggy that's like 5 or 10 years ago. So I'm not even 100% sure if that was Harvest Bucks. I think we were taking Harvest Bucks and our market had some other incentives, but sorry, I was just curious how people find out about it, because like our customers definitely knew, they were like, they knew how the program worked and were like, here, I'm going to charge this to my card and do the other half with the Harvest Bucks or whatever.
We love savvy shoppers.
Yes. Well, and because it's such a great program, right? Because it really incentivizes people, of course, to go to the farmer's market, right? So, I mean, I'm loving it as a farmer's market person, right? Because it incentivizes people going to the farmer's market because, right, they know they're going to get twice as many dollars. Their food dollar is going to go twice as far if they go spend at the farmer's market rather than a grocery store or something like that. So I think we covered that. It sounds like outreach is definitely part of what you're doing.
Yes,
and I guess
it is an effort.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure that keeps you guys busy. And so it's not a market eligibility kind of thing. It's individual farmers who can take SNAP can take Harvest Bucks. Is that correct?
Yes. So at a market that runs the market-wide programs from the info booth, individuals that receive the Maine Harvest Bucks after their EBT transaction can then go around and spend those directly with the farmers. In a case where it's an individual farmer that's selling at a farmer's market and they're the only vendor that accepts SNAP, it's a different thing because I am spending my SNAP with that farmer and receiving my bonus from them. So in those cases, if a vendor only sells fruits and vegetables, it might be easier for them to administer the bonus as a discount. But that might end up being more confusing for listeners. So safe to say that's not happening in very many places, but there's also farmers that swipe your EBT card and give you the Maine harvest bucks, and then you can give them right back to get your bonus vegetables.
Okay. And okay, so people aren't showing up with their harvest bucks. Like you said, there's an actual paper. I've seen them. It's like Monopoly money or something. There's an actual harvest buck, paper harvest buck. And because I was receiving them from people, I don't know. Am I correct? Are you telling me people didn't get, say, like mailed those? What people did is people were checking out at the info booth, or in the case of an individual farmer who's a SNAP, who can process SNAP. So they go check out at the info booth or with a farmer or info booth notices that they spent $10 on produce. And so if it's a doubling time, they give them a $10 worth of harvest bucks. Is that where they get the actual physical harvest bucks, is after spending their money on an eligible product?
It is a little bit confusing. So when I'm going to back up to when we were talking about the shopping sheet. That represents my SNAP EBT spending, which I can spend SNAP on any food item that is packaged for off-site consumption. So I'm going to buy my meat and bread and milk and eggs and things like that using the clipboard and my EBT card. But in my head, I know I want to get some fruits and vegetables too while I'm here, but I know I'm going to get that matching bonus. So I'm not going to buy the fruits and vegetables on my clipboard. I'm going to wait until they give me my bonus, and then I'm going to go get those carrots right there that I saw that looked great, and those apples. I'm going to come right back for those as soon as I get my Maine harvest bucks.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me, because I think one thing that's complicating this is that I've been on the receiving end of some of this stuff, and so sometimes people would walk into the stand having those harvest bucks, but now I realize they probably got them on their previous visit or something. Like they had bought something, they got the harvest bucks, and then were coming back. Because yeah, we had, I mean, like you want at a farmer's market, we had a lot of people who would come see us every week, and so I imagine what you said about like knowing that you were going to get harvest bucks and waiting to buy some of the other stuff makes a lot of sense. Or I guess they could get those harvest bucks and bring them back next week. I just didn't know what I was seeing.
I can totally understand. And so the last thing is, I'm still the shopper. We're pretending I'm the shopper. So I spent $30 on EBT and I got $30 in Maine harvest bucks. I'm circling back now to grab those carrots and apples, and I still have a bunch of Maine harvest bucks left. You know, I only spent 10 of the 30 that I earned today. And this is a hypothetical situation where we're doing a 1-to-1 match just because it's easier for me to talk about. So when I return to the Skowhegan market next week, I'm going to grab a clipboard because I want to buy more meat and bread and milk. But I also now have in my other hand that leftover $20 in Maine harvest bucks. So now I can I don't have to go around twice. If I'm savvy, I am going to go around with my clipboard in one hand and use that to pay for my non-produce. And then I've got these Maine harvest bucks that I earned last week, and I'm going to pay for my produce with that. When I'm all done doing that, I go back to the info booth, and now I'm kind of earning next week's Maine harvest bucks. If I'm a weekly shopper, that's most likely the situation that's going to happen. Is I'm going to pretty much always have Maine harvest bucks in my hand. And that's what's great about that 1-to-1 match is it's a very generous match. Basically, by matching folks spending by 100%, we're saying we're enabling you to eat 50% of your diet fruits and vegetables. It's not exact, you know what I mean? But we're enabling you to spend an equal amount on fruits and vegetables as you do on everything else. And it's that abundance mindset of I have plenty of Maine harvest bucks that actually causes the behavior change around eating fruits and vegetables. If I think so I have plenty of Maine harvest bucks, I've never tried that vegetable, and I'm not going to be out a lot. If I go ahead and grab that, it has the exact effect that we want it to, which is encouraging folks to eat more fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I mean, I love the program as a local foods guy, right? Because it's putting more money into the hands of people who could use it to buy more local produce. And then, of course, on the eating side of things, we know the cheapest calories are not fruits and vegetables. It's the processed foods and stuff like that. And so I feel like it also helps incentivize.
I like that take on it.
Otherwise, if you're truly trying to make your food dollar go as far as it has to, which a lot of people do, it's tempting to spend it on processed foods because unfortunately those are the cheapest foods right now. And so I think that's an important thing for people's health, to help make something other than processed foods more affordable. So that's why I love the program.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the transcendental beauty of Maine Harvest Bucks is it's a public health program. It is an economic driver because we are redirecting the federal SNAP funds into the local economy that generally would be spent at places like Walmart for the least expensive calorie. So it takes a small portion of those funds and redirects it into the local economy, as well as that matching produce dollar also goes directly into the state economy. Anyway, yeah, sorry, like that's a little rant, but I love Maine Harvest Bucks.
Yeah, well, no, I think that might be the quote of the interview right there. It's the transcendental beauty of the Maine Harvest Bucks program. It's brilliant. That's why I want to talk about it. All right, so I think one of the most important things is, where does the money come from? And with a mind for people who might want to set the program up in their area. But yeah, where does the money come from?
Okay, yes. Thank you for that distinction. So yeah, it's a great question and it's a real question, and we've been funding it for 10 years. So it's a question that we're really well positioned to answer, which is it's complicated. It's a pretty complex equation that we have come up with to fund Maine Harvest Bucks. And the equation is currently under fire, just being real. But the answer to that really starts with federal funding. So when Maine Harvest Bucks was brand new 10 years ago, there was a grant called the Finney Grant. That grant still is, the next iteration of it still is part of the Farm Bill, which is a piece of legislation that the USDA inputs on. And so it's got a funky cycle. It's not tied to any the Farm Bill. It happens like midway through a presidency. And so 2 presidencies ago, the Farm Bill was re-upped. And so this grant called the Finney Grant, there's no Finney Grant anymore. Now it's called GusNIP. And so the short of it is that GusNIP is a federal level grant that funds a portion of Maine Harvest Bucks redemption. So there's that part of the equation. Just remember GusNIP for now, Andrew. Then on the other side of the equation, I mean, I'm about to dig in hardcore into the nonprofit acronym world. So are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Actually, we had an article a few years back about GusNIP, believe it or not. So there is an article. I mean, yeah, I do sense the acronyms are about to get crazy here, but yeah, if people are really interested in nerding out on this stuff, we have an article in the Growing for Market archive about the GusNIP program, but I don't want to get bogged down on that. So, all right, continue.
I'm almost there. There's really like 3 pools of funds that fund Maine Harvest Bucks. And that's the federal one, GusNIP. That's that federal part. It constitutes about $60 of every $100 in Maine Harvest Bucks.
Okay.
That's the under fire part. The other part of the funding comes from the state of Maine, which we're really lucky in Maine that our state level government has set nutrition incentives as a priority, and they write Maine Harvest Bucks into the yearly budget. So that helps us balance the equation at times when things are a little bit more uncertain with that federal level grant. So GusNIP at the federal level, the state nutrition incentive program or grant is what we would call that state level funding, state nutrition incentive funds. And then we write small grants to like family philanthropy organizations and foundations. We take donations at our information booths. We run fundraisers to fundraise another portion of what pays for Maine Harvest Bucks. And so, of course, there's the nutrition incentive dollar itself, that Maine Harvest Buck. Something has to fund that. But then something has to also fund the administration of the program. And so that includes staff time, printing costs, all of the things that go into program administration. So I think I hit all the high notes on what funds Maine Harvest Bucks.
Okay. Right. Because obviously that's an important part of the whole thing is you got to have the money to make it happen. And can you gauge the impact on farmers or people who need food assistance using the metric of dollar value or of amount of food that's been donated? Or is there any metric to gauge, you've been doing this program for a decade, is there any metric to gauge what the impact has been on the community?
Oh, yeah. We're nonprofit program administrators. We love metrics. And so we do keep good tab on our data. I don't have final numbers for our year or anything, but I can tell you that each year Maine Harvest Bucks generates hundreds of thousands of dollars in SNAP sales by bringing that federal SNAP dollar into the farmers markets, as well as then the Maine Harvest Bucks dollars. And that money, of course, goes straight into the local economies. So that addresses what's the impact, like what's the dollar impact kind of on a state level. Yes, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Over my career, I think we've moved like $4 million into this Maine economy. My teammates were celebrating this number when we were celebrating my 10 years, and I kind of like that number.
4 million sounds good.
Yeah, I'll take it. And then as far as like the impact on shoppers, we consistently hear that Maine Harvest Bucks makes it possible for folks to buy fresh, healthy produce. And we have surveyed shoppers at times as well. And like again and again, this is just such a proven program. Folks will tell us about their measurable health improvement outcomes because they can now afford more fruits and vegetables. And then not to understate either the impact that this program has in building community, because it brings folks into the farmers market that might not be able to come to a farmers market otherwise. And we consider farmers markets to be, so we've talked about the dollar amount impact and then the public health impact. And now I want to talk a minute about how the community impact is immeasurable. There's not a metric for us to really lay out what the impact on that is. But I do have a personal anecdote that might hit with our audience, which is my first time at a farmer's market when I was 5 years old, and my parents utilized some government benefits. One of them was WIC, which has a farmer's market program.
Yep, I remember getting those.
We didn't really get into it because this isn't a program that MFFM administers. But ultimately, the short of it is a federal benefit brought little Emily to the farmer's market. And those were very special experiences for me because there was a really nice farmer there that he had restored an antique fire truck that had like fold out sides. I remember that. That was his market mobile. And I just remember him being really kind about me like touching things that I, shouldn't have touched. Like it did change my attitude around fruits and vegetables. But more importantly, it really made farmers markets stick out in my head as somewhere like that I belonged, somewhere that I could go. And I'm circling all the way back to how I got involved with this work, which is when I first moved to Maine 11 years ago, I didn't know anybody here and I had a young child. And I thought to myself, where can I go to start to meet people? And I ended up finding the Hamden Farmers Market and going to that market. And then I am here now sitting in this chair talking to you about the community impact that farmers markets have. So that's an impact that I just don't want to forget, is how positive experiences at the farmers market can be transformative too. Farmers markets are for everybody. That's, I guess, really what I'm trying to say is there's community connections that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, that's speaking of the choir over here, and I'm sure with our audience too. But yeah, that's a great story to kind of bring it all back to the beginning, and that's amazing. You guys have been able to move $4 million through the Maine farmers market economy, over a decade. I mean, that's probably a few farms that are in business now because of that extra income, or a lot of farms probably just had better years, right? Because those people probably not all that money would have come to them, if it couldn't have gotten doubled. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, how many yearly salaries or farmers' children's ballet lessons, and like that just represents a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you sort of like how the program works. Is it that you hold the money from the grants and fundraising that you do and then issue those farm bucks? And then when the farm bucks get spent and come back to you, you write the check to cover the farm bucks? Or like, how does the program work on the back end?
You're pretty darn close, Andrew. That's a good guess. So MFFM, we could call the statewide coordinator of the program. So I mentioned earlier that
Okay.
Maine Harvest Bucks is very focused on direct to consumer sales. And those things happen at farmers markets, farm stands, and then farms that are like administering a CSA program to folks. So we serve as the statewide coordinator managing the funding, training, reporting, outreach, all of that. And so we are what you would consider the grantee. The funds pass through us, which sounded like you had some sense that that's how it worked. So yes, we pass the funds through to different partners because we're not MOFGA also, they administer the CSA portion of the Maine Harvest Bucks program.
Oh, okay.
And then there's another program in the state of Maine called Farm Fresh Rewards, which is very similar to Maine Harvest Bucks, although it's a little bit different because it is not direct to consumer and it's not specific to local fruits and vegetables, which we won't talk too much about that. I'm more mentioning that as like we pass through the funds for that program as well. So we are what you would call a fiscal agent for a lot of our sites is what we call them. In fact, we're the fiscal agent for all of them because we're the one that receives that lump sum of funds and then we disperse them to all the different farmers markets. So we've talked through most of this Maine Harvest Bucks transaction today actually already, but to close the loop, we can talk a little bit about how the vendor turns that paper dollar into another paper dollar, but one that has more value, has dollar value.
Yeah, okay.
And so you as a vendor at the Skowhegan market, I spent some of my Maine Harvest Bucks with you. And now at the end of the market, you've got this whole bundle of different currencies. One of them is Maine Harvest Bucks. And you're going to turn those into the market information booth. Most of our vendors at this point have a cash bag system with the info booth where all of their stuff that they need to be reimbursed for gets put in the bag and then handed in at the end. And then each market has a counter who separates out the different currencies and counts them out and enters that into a spreadsheet. And so we have this huge universe of shared spreadsheets with farms and farmers markets all over Maine, and they're live. So as the counter is entering this reimbursement information into the spreadsheet, on my end, I can see it. And then I'll say, oh, Skowhegan Farmers Market redeemed this many Maine Harvest Bucks, and I will cut them a check. So the vendors get reimbursed by the market gets reimbursed by us, and then we get reimbursed by either our federal grant GUSNIP or our state level grant, nutrition incentive grant, or we have fundraised the funds in some other way to pay out.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to get a program like this going, obviously there's some fundraising which you guys do that they would just have to do. Would it be a matter of somebody applying for a GUSNIP, like saying, I don't know, Idaho. I don't know if Idaho has a Federation of Farmers Markets. Let's say Idaho, someone in Idaho is listening to this podcast and is like, oh, that's great. I want to do the same kind of thing. And so would they apply for GUSNIP funds for Idaho and say, I want to do a Harvest Bucks program for Idaho and see if they could get a grant to pay for it?
You know, I actually don't know too much about that part. I can tell you how it works for us, though. So I say we are the grantee, but really we are a sub-awardee. There is a regional cohort of organizations like us that we all go in and apply for GUSNIP together. And it's under a nonprofit organization called Farm Fresh Rhode Island. And they are the ones that actually apply. We all contribute towards this grant proposal. And then Farm Fresh Rhode Island applies to GUSNIP on behalf of this regional coalition of state level organizations like MFFM. So if I am an Idahoan and I'm unaware of anything like this, but I feel very passionately about getting something started, probably I'm going to start doing some research. I will go visit farmers markets, ask around, has anybody heard of this before? And probably you will trace that question back in Idaho to an organization like MFFM that maybe they are just less focused on farmers markets. And so it represents a smaller part of their work. There is a nutrition incentive, but it's a smaller part of what they do. That would be my guess, is that there's not going to be too many states that don't have either something going or something in the works. I have done a little bit of research about state level brands and organizations that administer them, and it's not a new idea, although it is an idea that, it's a very broad idea. This nutrition incentive idea is administered a lot of different ways, not just the way that we're doing it, but we're doing it in a way that works for Maine right now.
Okay. And that, yeah, I mean, that's a very good point with local agriculture. Like most things in agriculture, it may not be one size fits all, but I think you're giving people the ideas. It's like enough to be dangerous.
I guess in closing on that, I wouldn't encourage anybody to individually go and try and apply for GusNIP. I would try and, if you are a state organization, if there is one out there that doesn't have stuff like this going, find out who the people are that are either already working on this or have something going, and instead of duplicating efforts, get on board with what's already happening. Because
Uh-huh.
there's probably somebody out there who is doing something. And where the GusNIP grant is federal, it's just there's a bar that you got to reach to really be competitive with federal grants. It's not the same as applying for a community foundation grant or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that should give people some ideas of where to start, looking, or it sounds like that's really good advice to partner with somebody to try to get the funding.
And I'm sure you're also going to furnish my contact information, and I encourage you to do so. I will say right now, our executive director is out on parental leave. Congratulations, Jimmy. And we're a little stretched right now, but I would love for folks anywhere to reach out and ask me about what we're doing. I would love to send people the right way or answer questions.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for saying so, because I sure hope people do, because it's such a great program. Also, I imagine things are kind of in flux right now. Like that actually segues really well into, I wanted to ask you, has the Harvest Bucks program been affected by all the recent cancellation of a lot of grant funding for farm programs? Has that been disruptive for your programs?
Oof. Good question. Yes. So we actually have set the stage really well for this question, Andrew, because we've already talked about GusNIP, which is a piece of, federal level legislation, part of the Farm Bill. And normally, so the Farm Bill is good for, and I actually don't remember, right now it's slipping my mind, whether the Farm Bill is set for 3 years or 5 years, but ultimately the GusNIP grant happens on a 3 or 5 year cycle where we are awarded and then we get reimbursed kind of ongoing for that period of time. And so this past year would have been the time where the Farm Bill gets re-upped, if you will. GusNIP gets extended for another grant cycle. All of the things that the Farm Bill addresses would basically just get renewed. And sometimes, things change, and that's fine and normal with how things go. But this time, instead of being able to reapply for GusNIP and kind of get the word that we have been awarded the GusNIP grant again, there is nowhere to, we have not even been able to apply. And so it's a pretty direct message. At this point in time, normally we would be applying for that in January through March, and then we would hear that we were awarded in June. the portal that we would go to send our proposals and whatnot is just not even live. It's not available. So we have no way of knowing if GusNIP is still a thing. Is it going to keep happening? If so, what level of funding would we receive? So, like, in limbo and in flux is kind of the name of the game right now. Up until September, we were funding Maine Harvest Bucks at a 1-to-1 match, which just, another way that we say that is we match 100% of SNAP shoppers' spending. We dropped that down to 2-to-1 to try and stretch what we have currently in our GusNIP pool of funds, because we sign a new contract each year for what portion of our award we're going to utilize each year. And so at this point is not an opportunity for us next year to sign that contract to keep going. And so we have a set amount of funds that we're going to try to stretch as far as we can. And so that's the big discussion, the big sticking point. And so we do still have the state level funds, which pays for some of the Maine Harvest Bucks. So some of the fruits and vegetables, like those actual fruits and vegetables. But then the state fund also funds the administration. And so we do still have that. And we do still have, of course, all of our fundraising efforts. But GusNIP brings in a lot. At this point, we don't know if it's a $400,000 or $600,000 deficit that we're looking at, but it's big. And it's a scary number that would be difficult for a small nonprofit. This is something that we're really proud of, is we move hundreds of thousands of dollars on what other nonprofits would consider a shoestring, for real. Like, we are lean and we just make it happen. But if we don't have those incentive dollars, it's going to be really difficult. And
right.
I mean, I don't even know what we would do. I wouldn't feel good about dropping the match down further. Yeah. So we're navigating. we're trying to figure it out. And then the big tough thing is just the unknown. We don't have like any set timeline for when things are going to be sorted out. It's not like we're waiting for the answer. We don't know if an answer is coming. And that's the really hard, frustrating, really sad part, is we are going to have to just keep going at pace until we hear something, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, well, I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, it's probably worth pointing out to our audience. We're sitting here, it's November 4th. I think it's 35 days the government has been shut down at this point, and the administration was trying to withhold the SNAP funding, and judges just said they couldn't do that, and they need, and so I think the point is, who knows? Who knows? I think that in uncertainty, there's just so much uncertainty right now. I'm sure it makes it hard for you. And I know, like, farmers are in the same boat of having to try to decide whether to buy supplies they need now with tariffs on them, or wait and see if they change. I mean, it's just like, it seems like there's just so much uncertainty right now. It's not great for decision making for anybody. So that's kind of like the elephant in the room. I had to ask, like, what's going on with that whole side of things, since that's in flux. I don't know what else to call it, but right now.
Me either.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be transparent and honest about how that's affecting us. And it's not just affecting us. That's kind of the point, is this is directly affecting farmers fruit and veggie farmers. The Maine Harvest Bucks is what portion of their sales. Obviously, it varies from market to market and vendor to vendor, but it's a good amount of money. Same thing with the SNAP dollars. And that is a whole other discussion, which we can talk about MFFM's response to SNAP not being funded. I would be happy to launch into that. But if that's, something you want to cover today, but ultimately, there's the food insecurity issue of not funding SNAP, but then there is a huge economic issue at play here, which is that SNAP dollars are actually one of the things that keeps retailers open. It keeps our grocery stores open because it is so, it constitutes so much of there's a huge portion of money that comes into Maine in the form of SNAP dollars. So yeah, it's frustrating from every perspective.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think it's a very uncertain time for a lot of people right now.
Yes.
I don't know if this is worth covering. I was looking on your website and saw that you were making emergency Maine Harvest Bucks available now while SNAP funding is held up. is that worth talking about, or how that's working, or is it just?
Yeah, I mean, this is a current issue. I don't see why we shouldn't talk about it. So, the short of it is, I have basically laid all of the groundwork to talk about this because we have spent so much time talking about what funds Maine Harvest Bucks. So, the federal grant, GusNIP, those GusNIP funds are tied up in the SNAP transaction, meaning we can't give GusNIP funded Maine Harvest Bucks without a SNAP transaction that kind of matches with it. And so if there's no SNAP happening, we're also kind of limited on how we can disperse funds because if people can't spend SNAP, then we can't give Maine Harvest Bucks. But we're crafty. No, it's not crafty. We're just lucky that we have state level funds. We had to do a lot of research last week to figure out whether we were allowed to offer emergency funds. And luckily, because of the state level support that we have, those funds are restricted differently and they're not attached to the SNAP transaction. That gave us our answer. It was like, if we are allowed to do this, then we're going to. And at this point, the current news, I guess, is that SNAP will be partially funded for the month of November, but in Maine, folks receive SNAP benefits in a staggered way from the 10th of the month through the 14th. And even if partial funds get released, those needed to be in hand weeks ago to be dispersed on schedule. And so it all remains uncertain. Are folks going to get some of their SNAP funds? Maybe. If they do, they will be delayed. And so MFFM just, in the face of all of our federal level uncertainty, we really felt like we needed to do something. And so we came up with our idea for Maine Harvest Bucks Plus, which not all states are going to be able to do a program like that because not all of them have the state level differently restricted funds to use. But I will tell you, as soon as the USDA got any whiff of organizations like us trying to do something to bridge this SNAP funding gap, they sent a notice telling everybody you're not allowed to give any special treatment to folks that receive SNAP. There's federal level rules that require you to give equal treatment to everyone. And I just, it was obviously in response to organizations trying to figure out what they can do to help folks. And we're operating outside of any USDA purview because it's a state program, state funds. Like, it was a little bit of a moment for us where we, just figured out like, yeah, we obviously want to comply with all USDA rules and standards, because we hold licenses to accept SNAP for some markets. But we just ended up being in a good spot to do it and still comply with all the rules.
Good for you for finding a workaround. I wish they just let people help people. So I'm glad you.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah, you hit that on the head, Andrew, where it's like you're really going to pick up on just everybody mobilizing to help. And the USDA's response is, that you're not allowed to do that or that there's additional hoops that you need to jump through. And yeah, that aspect of it's unfortunate because people just want to help people.
Yeah, let them help people. All right. Well, you've been really generous with your time. I do want to ask you about another program of MFFM, the Maine Senior Farm Share. So I don't want to spend as much time, obviously, as we did on Harvest Bucks, and that's something that we didn't personally participate in, but I know some of our friends who had CSAs did. Can you just outline what the Maine Senior Farm Share is and just tell us a little bit about how that program works? Because that's another one that if people don't have going in their area, I could see people, farmers or food advocates, wanting to try to start up a similar kind of thing in their regions.
Yes, and I think this is a great fit for that, where if any farmer or farmer's market or area of Maine doesn't have this program currently, they should definitely reach out so that we can try and get a better geographical distribution. So yeah, Maine Senior Farm Share, I'm really glad that you asked because I love talking about Maine Senior Farm Share. We are in our third year of this program, and this is one of the cases where, yeah, we kind of invented the wheel. There was no other state organization that's administering Maine Senior Farm Share the way that we are. And we've had great success, lots of trials and tribulations. But what it all leads to is We have served with Maine Senior Farm Share like 2,200 seniors this year. And that's another number that I love because these are our neighbors. Maine is an old state, a very old state.
It's the oldest population in the country last time I looked.
Yes. And then I also heard recently Aroostook County is the oldest county in the oldest state in the United States. Obviously,
Oh,
one
wow.
of our counties
Yeah,
would have been the oldest one, but
I believe it.
yeah, it all checks out. So, Maine Senior Farm Share has been around for a very long time. And the iteration that you remember, Andrew, is still going strong. It's where farmers are basically signed up and authorized to do the program themselves. They are the ones that sign seniors up to participate with them, and then they grow and give the food to seniors. We call that the farmer model, where the farmer's doing all of the administration. This separate model that MFFM has built, we'll call it market wide or farmers market wide model. We're still leaning on our info booth structure to administer the program. And so the way it works with the market wide model is seniors come to the info booth and they sign up with the market as a whole. When they sign up, they get an envelope with $50 worth of vouchers that they can spend on fruits, vegetables, cut herbs, and honey at any of the vendors around the market. So they both serve a purpose. Both models are really effective in feeding seniors, but sometimes one model of the program is a better fit for a farmer or a farmer's market. And so it's just nice to have the choice because we're able to reach a lot more seniors because of the flexibility that the market-wide model provides. And so the short of it is whether you participate on the farmer side or the market side, each eligible senior gets $50 worth of credit. If you sign up with a farmer, then you just literally get like $50 worth of credit to spend against. If you sign up with a farmer's market, then you get $50 worth of vouchers to spend. The farmers are reimbursed for this, same as Maine Harvest Bucks. So the infrastructure that we build with our info booth and our Maine Harvest Bucks program gives us the space and latitude to administer and engage in other programs and offer more resources. So our info booths are quickly morphing into a community resource because they are connection points for folks to reach a lot of different things. So yeah, Maine Senior Farm Share is going really well and there's a lot of excitement about it. We're still gaining momentum. And so far this year, I'm all about the pretty numbers today. More than $90,000 in fresh Maine produce has gone home to seniors that love it. That's one of the huge things about this program is for a lot of seniors, they remember having huge gardens. And so I get to hear stories all the time of seniors saying how blessed they feel by being able to go shop at the farmer's market and get foods that remind them of their childhood or are just their favorites. That has a big impact on me, is helping folks find and gather foods that feel relevant to them and bring them joy or have, some positive effect on them. And so, yeah, we coordinate that state level program too.
Yeah. Well, and that's amazing because we know a lot of seniors are on fixed incomes, right? And like we talked about, the cheapest food isn't the good food, unfortunately. And so I imagine that helps a lot of seniors afford healthier options, just like with the Harvest Bucks. One question I did have about the Senior Farm Share: do they get a like a CSA box every week, or is it one time like $50, like you were saying?
So if you sign up with a farmer, then it really varies. Some farmers do that structured CSA type box, but other farmers will just have you come shop at their farm stand, spending against the credit that you have with them. There are also some
Oh,
farmers
okay.
that sell at farmers markets. And so same idea, you just come to their farm stand and spend against your credit. One distinction I want to make though is that you won't find both the farmer model and the market model happening congruently at any farmer's market. You will find one or the other.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. And so I imagine if people wanted to run something like this, they would have to raise funds or get a grant or something and say, we want to give a CSA box, or we want to give produce to seniors. Am I right? In your case, I imagine it's a different grant or different fundraising for, is it like a different pot of money for senior farm share versus Maine harvest bucks?
Yep, absolutely.
Once again, I'm thinking if somebody is setting this up of how, so basically, like, there's the idea. You just gave them the idea. It's up to them to go find the money to make it happen.
Not exactly. So Maine Senior Farm Share is a federal level program. Here I go again.
Okay,
No.
okay.
I'll give you like the 3 sentence.
I think we got a nerdy audience. Yeah, go ahead. However much detail you want.
Cool. Okay. So Maine Senior Farm Share is a federal level program. Here we go. It's another thing of the Farm Bill, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's another part of the Farm Bill. And so the federal government gives states a chunk of money to do senior farm share. And in Maine, we call it Maine Senior Farm Share. And so this is happening in other states. It's just structured a little bit differently. And so from MFFM's perspective, the Maine Senior Farm Share is strictly pass-through funds. Each senior gets their $50. They redeem it at their farmer's market, and it goes through the reimbursement steps, but that $50 per person just passes right through us, right to the farmer, as direct a route as we can make it.
Yes. Well, both great programs. So hopefully we are giving people ideas on both fronts. Well, Emily, those are the questions that I had for you. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about it, but I did want to just make sure, is there anything that I should have asked you or that you'd like to say before we would let you go?
No, but I can give a closing thanks for having me. It's always great to share the work that's happening here in Maine. We're kind of an isolated state, but I love sharing all that we're working on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know what you mean. I do feel we're kind of like up here in the northeast corner of the country. We are kind of off the beaten path. On the other hand, I think Maine is a real great farmers market and farm state. It's like lots of tiny little towns still have a farm culture here. And I think part of that, you're definitely supporting that and helping it continue to thrive into the future. Maine is an old state, but I really appreciate the work that you're doing, both for the people that you're feeding and also for the farmers that you're helping to succeed. It's such important work. I hope that people will get ideas from this podcast. We're heading into the winter. It's a great time for planning projects. So other than all the chaos, it's a great time for planning. So
yes. And I guess actually there is one thing I would add, Andrew, especially for anybody who's listening in Maine. If you feel strongly about, some of the issues that I've talked about today, or if you want to get involved, we would love for more folks to get involved. The farmers markets are such a powerful way to connect people and strengthen communities. And it's an open invitation for folks to engage with us if they want to run fundraisers or, just have ideas and want to be part of the team. We would love that.
All right, there's your invitation, folks. All right, so I will put your contact information in the show notes so people know how to get a hold of you, and we'll tag you on all the stuff that we do on socials so that you see it. But Emily, it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for telling us about the important work that you're doing, and thanks for doing it.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, well, it's been fun. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Growing for Market podcast. If you've been enjoying the show, please consider giving us a follow and a rating or a review. It really helps others find the podcast. For more tips and tricks from farmer to farmer, check out our magazine at growingformarket.com. Whether you're a commercial grower or just want to grow like one, subscribe to Growing for Market magazine for the nitty-gritty of growing, marketing, and the business of market farming. We publish 10 issues per year with articles written by experienced farmers on topics ranging from tools and techniques to farm business operations and marketing. If you've been listening to the Growing for Market podcast and haven't yet checked out Growing for Market magazine, we've made a change so you can try the magazine for free. We've added a free month to the beginning of all first-time subscriptions. Try out the digital or paper magazine for a month, and if it's not for you, cancel within 28 days and you'll never even get billed. All subscriptions get you a year of the magazine, plus 150 downloadable back issues from the last 15 years and over 1,700 archived articles. With digital subscriptions starting at just $39 a year, head on over to growingformarket.com and subscribe today to benefit from over 3 decades of writing by farmers, for farmers in Growing for Market magazine.